Sonali, how many times have you been here?
About 7 years.
7 years. That's probably about the same as I have, actually. I don't think I came much before 7 years.
Yeah, it has become a lot bigger, hasn't it?
Probably too big.
Yeah.
I think we're all agreed it's got too big.
I really want to start with your new announcement about your venture with Snapchat and Daily Mail called Truffle Pig.
Yeah, well, it's obeisance to David Ogilvy because he believed that truffle pigs look for truffles. I think it's dogs now, actually. It's no longer pigs. So that's the reason for the sort of extraordinary name. But the history to it is John Steinberg at the Daily Mail. We knew him through BuzzFeed, and he went to the Daily Mail in the US. And then he introduced me to Evan Spiegel, and at the time when Evan was trying to get sponsors for his 12 over-the-top channels. And we weren't very successful, actually, because at $750,000 a pop, a lot of our clients said, "Where's the data?" But we kept that relationship up, and John had this idea of bringing SJR, which is Alex Jutkowitz and our social content operation. Alex operates within H&K and across WPP, works with people such as Jeff Immelt at GE and Ian Reid at Pfizer on their social media content, video, text. So I think there's an interesting opportunity there. I mean, when I talked to John about it, I said you should meet Alex because he's really revolutionary in this area, has done an extraordinarily good job. So we're bringing the Mail, which has been very successful online, part of Associated Newspapers, Snapchat, which is the new centennial, millennial platform, is giving Facebook a run for its money.
Sure. One of your statements that you made at Cannes has got significant traction, the statement that you made talking about eating your own children.
That's the cannibalization argument, which I think you have to do. You have to drive your existing businesses, the J. Walter Thompson, Ogilvy, Y&R Gray, and they've all done very well here at Cannes this week, as we'll see tonight. They've done excellently. You have to drive them to digitize more. You have to take Wunderman and Ogilvy, $1 billion plus businesses, plus Ejaz's and Tom Better carries AKQA, 300 million, possible at 200 with Shane Atkinson, and then John Cook's VML also around 200 million, and drive them forward on digital. They're doing very well, but go further. And last but not least, you have to experiment, which is where the eating your own children. So this is WPP Ventures early stage investments, so Refinery 29, etc. And it's WPP Digital, which is more middle and later stage, where we're developing associations.
Right.
So a Vice, a Media Rights Capital, a Full Screen, even a Harvey Weinstein's film fund are all examples of that.
Sure. One thing that has been on everybody's mind this Cannes, with a lot of clients and agencies all here, is the fact that a lot of big accounts are up for review.
In the US.
Right.
Media reviews.
Media reviews, yes. And that doesn't seem to be, a matter of sheer timing or, sheer coincidence. I mean, there's obviously something that...
Well, that's your interpretation of it. I mean, logically, I sort of disagree with that, because logically, if you were going to do it in the most sensible fashion, let's say that there was a need for those reviews for a minute, which we assume there is. Logically, client A would have their review, finish their review, we go on to client B and client C, and you wouldn't do it in the midst of the upfronts. Because the incumbents, and we are incumbent on a small proportion, say 25% of the total reviews, 20 billion, whatever it is. So we have more to gain, significantly more to gain than others. The big three, the three biggest accounts in review, P&G, L'Oreal and Coca-Cola, we're not the incumbent on any of them. Those are massive opportunities. And this is a once in a lifetime change, because most of those companies haven't reviewed for a very long period of time. But you wouldn't do it in the way that it's happened, because it's putting tremendous pressure on the agencies. If you're in the incumbent, let's say in those three cases the incumbents are known, they have to run the trains on time and they have to have a pitch team.
Yeah.
In the accounts where we are the incumbent, it's very difficult because we have to run the trains,
Sure.
And you have to have your team, and you've got to do the upfronts. So it's incredibly difficult. I don't think that, frankly, to be blunt, that it's the best way of doing it. I'm not saying you don't need not to have it.
Yeah.
But I think it could be timed a better way. Now, why is it happening? I think it's primarily because clients are uncertain about whether they're spending the right amount of money, whether it should be more or less, in the right way, on the right channels, online, offline, TV, press, whatever. So there's an uncertainty about it. That's exacerbated by the measurement issues. You know that in India, and we see that in other markets like Brazil, and not so much China or Russia. See it in Turkey. So these are markets which are looking at the measurement now. Now we know in America, for example, that Nielsen has a flawed model. It should be C+7. As Group M has continuously said, it's C+3. On the online side, what is viewability? Is it just because somebody happens to see a film? Well, interesting, when we did an announcement of Alex the Kid, the music producer, the Rick Rubin, modern day Rick Rubin, when we did that, one of the journalists said to me, do you know that 50% of video is not listened to? The sound is off. So, so is that a view if you don't hear the sound? I mean, or is it? Should it be 15 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it is? So there have to be standards, and the traditional media have to conform to a higher standard. So when Philippe Doman of Viacom complains that MTV and Nickelodeon are not rated by Nielsen in the right way, he's right. Because the standard, it doesn't measure out of home. It doesn't measure second and third screens. And we know from Mary Meeker's data, for example, that time spent is growing on those media. On the other side, we've pushed with Unilever to get better viewability standards, better than even the IAB, Interactive Advertising Bureau. So the hurdle for traditional is high. The hurdle for new is low. It has to be evened up. And even, a newspaper, which is so important in an Indian context, we know the engagement data shows that consumers are more engaged with traditional newspapers, and that's not reflected in time spent. So we have to modify our thinking. So that's part of it too.
But, you talk about, conflict of interest, media owners and agencies and the blurring of roles. I agree that is happening, but you also agree that that is possibly going to be the new relationship of the future.
Well, we've got, I'm not sure in traditional media that is the case. Would you own a newspaper? Would you own a TV channel? So I think you have to look at it that way. On the other hand, the pressure from procurement is so great. It's like in the car industry. The auto industry squeezed its suppliers so much that they were put out of business, to the extent that the big three in Detroit were faced, for example, with lack of supply. What's happened in the advertising industry is forced the consolidation. So in a way, it's be careful for what you wish for, because it's forced us to consolidate. I think the big six will become the big four. It tried to go to the big five, but failed. Maurice should have hung on, for another 6 months, and he would have been able to get the CFO that he wanted, because Randy Weisenberger was gone. So I just think that consolidation is being forced by the procurement pressure. So we have to develop new approaches. We have to have programmatic. Well, we have to have it anyway.
Yeah.
We're buying online inventory, but we're explicit about it. We're transparent about it, and we get clients to opt in. Omnicom was forced in their quarterly call, either by accident or design. Maybe that's why Randy Weisenberger left, to admit that it purchased inventory. And this is why there's a fundamental point that has to be established. Agencies should show what their billings are, which we do, audited. They should show what their revenues are, which we all do, and they should show what their net sales are, which they don't do. And until that happens, we will not get the respect that we deserve and need in relation to transparency. If there is no difference, Omnicom, for example, say, well, there's no need for us to give you a net sales figure because there's no difference. then there's no problem giving it to us. So I think, I think a number of our competitors say they don't buy the inventory. We know that in some markets they are buying inventory. It's just an unwillingness. We know that they have telesales operations. We know that they have food brokerage operations. We know that they have barter operations. I think they have to come clean on that.
Right.
You're laughing. Why are you laughing?
I want to talk to you.
It's not a laughing matter.
I get your point, and I I want to talk about the focus that we've had at the Cannes Lions for the last few years, and it's no more about the big and famous. It's all about ad tech and data and
I think it's
a
little bit unfair. I think that you'll see tonight it's not about that. I mean, I think look, it does celebrate creativity in a much broader sense. I mean, you're looking at it like Mrs. Draper. You're Megan. I mean, you should think about it. So it's back to the 60s and 70s. No, it isn't. It's just broadening the concept of creativity.
I agree with you. I'm saying, but the conversation here, if you have any conversation here, or even the sessions for that matter, the conversation is largely new and upcoming. The conversation, although...
Which it should be. I mean, we don't want to sort of focus on the old and the downcoming, do we?
No, but given the fact that, traditional still accounts for a significant part of every holding company and
but we all want to be on the cutting edge, we all want to know, what do you ask us incessantly? What's new? What's next? You don't ask us what's old, what's dying.
So do you think there needs to be a little bit of balance in
there
the
is balance, and we'll see.
So?
We'll see at the gala tonight.
Yeah.
We'll see what wins and what doesn't win. Mm-hmm. No, but listen, look, at the end of the day, I see Cannes as a vindication of our strategy, which beyond talent, it's, what are the characteristics of our strategy? If new markets, new media, data, application, technology, horizontality, it's technology,
sure.
It's data, and it's content. And I think that's what you're seeing. But, I wouldn't want Cannes to, revert backwards. One wants to see it. In a way, I agree with you. You want to look at what's happening now, but you also want to look at what's going to happen in the future. Sure. You want to, you're interested in what agencies are going to look like in the future, what holding companies are going to look like in the future, what media companies. I think the interesting thing is that Cannes is great for us, for a number of reasons. Firstly, because I think primarily because our people enjoy it, and this is the Oscars of the industry.
Yep.
You want to celebrate our people. A lot of our clients, not everyone, some of our clients say, look, don't bother with this. In fact, they think it's a distraction. Most of our clients, I would say the majority, think this is something important because they get kudos from it as well.
Sure.
They can say inside their companies that this big idea won a gong, won an award, and was stellar creatively, and it reflects on them and drives their revenues. And then, last but not least, it gives the opportunity for the media owners to engage with us. What's very interesting about Cannes is that it's to your point about ad tech, or, well, I think they're the new media owners. They monetize inventory just like the old media owners, or try to, is that the new media owners engage. So we see how Google is becoming softer because of regulatory pressures. We see how Facebook is becoming more aggressive because it thinks it's catching up with Google on mobile and video. We see Yahoo trying harder, doing, I think, a great job of trying hard. We see Microsoft, I think, doing a more integrated job, and tremendous opportunities for us. Apple, much more welcoming, I think, really, which is really good news. Twitter, stronger. I mean, despite the CEO change and Dick stepping down, which I think is a bit sad, I think there's some really good product coming, and that makes it. LinkedIn, the same. BuzzFeed, beyond Snapchat. I mean, really some interesting. But it's interesting that, to your point, it's more sort of to the new, and I think there's an opportunity for the established companies, Disney and Fox, and News Corp, and Viacom, and CBS, and NBC. I mean, to be even more aggressive in a constructive way.
Sure.
They're here, they're prominent, but there's a bigger opportunity, I think.
I want to talk to you about, Google, Twitter, and Facebook. And you look at these three platforms. How are you looking at...
The big threat is Snapchat, though, isn't it, really? If you look at centennial, millennial behavior, what's amazing, even between millennials and centennials being 1997 plus, don't ask me why, but that's what I'm told they are, and millennials 1985, 87 plus, their use of Facebook differs enormously. So Snapchat is sort of seen as being a mission impossible sort of self-destruction. The prying eyes are kept out, whatever the reason. But it's remarkable the data differences, the data usage differences between different generations. So Snapchat really could threaten the duopoly that you have, as Twitter obviously threatens it as well. So we could have a quadropoly, I guess. But it's interesting. I mean, Twitter, I think we've gone from 50 to 150 million last year. We'll be up to 220 this year, to maybe 230, 240. We've got some interesting new products. Facebook, we were at 640 last year. We'll be over 900 this year, which is below our target, but still a substantial increase. And Google will go from 2.9 to 3.5, maybe 3.6 billion worldwide. So Google is still the dominant force.
But do you see that changing in terms of dynamics?
Well, I think the simple answer is no. I think, well, there are two things that Google has to deal with, in my humble view. First is problems of size, and secondly, the regulator. Now, there was a great article about what the new CFO at Google should do, how it can turn it from being $360 billion gorilla, and we're at 32, so we're a tenth the size, into a $650 billion gorilla. It basically said, buy back more stock and be a bit more disciplined on cash. Don't spend things on going to the moon. I can't remember what the third thing was, but actually quite interesting that it was an interesting article about what Google has to do to improve its market value. I don't, Google, it's a friendlier friend of me than it was. Facebook, I think, is going the other way, actually, and maybe that's success, is making it less humble. But, it does it with all companies. But I do think, I think that the question is, will the duopoly continue?
Okay, so you're leaving that open.
Yeah, I mean, Snapchat is just starting. Sure. It's run by a 25-year-old billionaire. I insulted him by calling him a 25-year-old billionaire when he was 24. Now he's actually caught up to 25. And I think Twitter has a good shot, but Twitter is much more a PR media.
Yeah, exactly. Are you sure they found their positioning right? I mean, have they got their
I think that's one of the difficulties, because they still don't.
When I met the Twitter folks this time in Cannes, they were very clear. They looked at themselves as the largest focus group in the world, and they were talking about how they're going to be problem and business solution providers to clients. I'm not so sure if that's a position that will work.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but Periscope is a tremendous product.
Sure.
Tremendous. I mean,
sure.
Somebody used it here for our press conference here. They said, within sort of 2 seconds, you had 700 people saying, ask him about Portugal, ask him about this, that, and the other. So, Meerkat is another one that's tremendously interesting. But we have to see how Wicker is another one. Jim Breyer has invested in Wicker. You have to see how these things gain traction.
I want to talk about BRIC. The last time I spoke with you, you said that yes.
India is the stellar BRIC.
Is it?
Go Modi, we say.
So is it looking a little better, or are things?
No, more than a little better. I mean, we're going to get close to $600 million in India in terms of revenue. We've just crossed 500 million. We have 15,000 people. The business is doing very well. It's firing on all cylinders, which is really pleasing. So India is under-branded still. It's under-advertised. Why, when we have such a large share in India, is it just 500 million, whereas China, where we have a smaller share, is 1.6
Exactly.
billion.
Exactly.
The answer is that 500 could go to 1.6.
Sure, but having said that, I really want to talk to you about this because you're the Asia evangelist. And if you look at India and China, at one point
It's only
in
a
time,
question of time.
No. Let me finish my question.
No, it's only a question. Whatever your question is, it's only a question of time. It's inexorable.
No, but we have lost the plot at some level. Look at
No.
China and look at where we are.
No, it's inexorable. It's just going to take, because India is, what is it? What used to be, we build at the World Economic Forum as the fastest growing democracy.
It's for a long
Right.
time now.
No, but when you're democratic, I guess the penalty is speed, right? So that's why I say it's only a question of time.
And how are you looking?
I have absolutely no doubt that India will get there. It's just inevitable. If you just look at the numbers, India will be the most populous country in 25 years' time. India's GDP probably be the third largest in the world at that particular time, if I remember rightly. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. India with those, and then why it's inevitable is you look at history. You go back to the early 19th century. That's where it was. China, India, the BRICS, the next 11, how you define it, were the 40-50% of worldwide GDP that they will be. So that's why I think Modi's approach is so powerful, because if you can get the bedrock right, it is still extraordinary that there are more cell phones than toilets in India, and he wants to change that, quite rightly.
You clearly seem to be a Modi fan.
Well, I think listen, I think nations, governments, companies, regions are about leadership. I mean, there's business schools now, they tell you it's about the team. Of course it's about the team, but if you don't have somebody who's willing to stick his or her neck out, that's why I think it'd be great if Hillary Clinton was president of the United States, because a female running the world's most powerful country would be that would be a bit of an eye opener.
I want to talk to you about the India context with Bach going live. How do you see the fate of TAM?
Well, we'll continue. I mean,
of course,
we'll continue. I mean, we're committed. I don't know whether all the investment and all the time and effort has been worthwhile.
I believe they're in conversation with TAM to buy them out.
I've got no idea about that. No, I think you're wrong. Actually, that's wrong.
Really?
No, I can tell you that that's wrong.
Right. So this will continue as an independent operation.
That is not correct. That is not correct. So that sounds like somebody being scurrilous again in the Indian sort of superstructure.
So they will continue as an independent operation.
They will continue.
But will you take a call on the viability at some point in time, along with your partner?
No, they will continue.
Okay.
And we're totally convinced. I mean, the question is, whether funding by media owners is necessarily the right way to go.
I agree with you.
Referee
Absolutely.
and players.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree with you.
So, and when you look at the expenditure, whether and what has it changed? So we'll see. But I think the jury is still out, as they say.
Right. One last thing I want to talk to you about is that your pay is constantly making headlines. And
well, I wouldn't say, but constantly making. It's this time of year, it is.
Yeah, it does.
It is the Martin compensation season.
And
it's a bit like Wimbledon. It comes around every year. But it's, as I said to the Al Gore in the session, let's talk about his options at Apple, because I'm a compensation expert.
But you survived this time too.
But I didn't have options, you see. That's the point. Well, I mean, it's no question about survival. My compensation plan, which, by the way, which encompasses 20 other people inside WPP, was a plan that was approved by 83% of shareholders. It was approved actually by Standard Life. And it's a bit like saying, well, we don't like the result, but you approve the plan. We can solve the problem, actually. I mean, the problem with my compensation is the better the company does, the better I do, and the better those 19 other people do. Now, the 20 of us can solve the problem by making sure the company doesn't do well, and that will have the benefit of the company not doing well and us not doing well, because 90% of my compensation, and indeed the others' compensation, is dependent on the performance of WPP. Now, if that's a bad thing, mea culpa. If it's a bad thing to take a company from 2 people in one room 30 years ago to 188,000 people in 111 countries, so that probably we have about 600,000 or 700,000 people dependent on WPP, mea culpa. Terrible thing.
Thank you so much for joining us, Martin. Always a pleasure to see you in Cannes.
Great fun as always.